So if you've been working out for a while, you've likely encountered this term overtraining before. You've likely encountered that somewhere. And what I'm going to say in this video might surprise you a little bit, might offend you. Some people have gotten quite mad at me for this, but I'm going to say that overtraining is a myth, honestly. Now, can you train to the point of injury, of overuse? Yes, of course. But really, most people don't get that far. I say it's a myth because 99.9% of people don't overtrain because they don't work that hard. They don't get there. A lot of people use overtraining as an excuse to go easy on themselves. And that's why for most people I say, no, you're not overtraining. It doesn't exist. They get mad at me because they take it literally. They act like I'm saying there's no such thing as overtraining. Your body can work forever and it'll never break down even under 1,000 pounds, right? Of course you'll get injured. The body has limits, right? If a building fell on you, you're not going to bench press it off of you. But most people aren't having buildings dropped on them. Most people aren't even going to failure when they're benching, when they're doing any exercise. So that's why I say this. A lot of people really don't understand how far their bodies can go. This sounds like really weird advice, but push yourself more to the brink of injury. Like especially if you're young, do that. Do it at least once. Go to the past the point where you think you're going to hurt yourself at least once, right? I'm not saying you should hurt yourself, but do something that scares you a little bit because you're scared of overtraining or overworking yourself. Maybe don't get injured, but if you're young, you'll recover faster. You can push yourself more in this time period. If you're like 14 to 25 years old, maybe even up to 30, push yourself really damn hard. Learn your limits because I'll tell you, most people don't know them. Once you know your limits, it's a lot easier to make faster progress. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, but it's also like learn your limits, push yourself, but it's also important not to limit your mind when it comes to overtraining. I don't remember where this is from, but I remember reading this in Can't Hurt Me, which is David Goggins' first book. Most people only push themselves about 40% as far as they can go. So think about that. Every time you're about to stop, especially if it's something like cardio or, any endurance activity, you're only about 40% of the way, at least for the average person who hasn't been working out for a long time and hasn't trained their discipline to go further. You're only about 40% of the way, especially if you're new. So keep that in mind. It's like, yeah, it might be really uncomfortable to keep going, and as you reach 100%, you might injure yourself. So don't injure yourself, don't go all that way, but you're nowhere near overtrained, Like I'm a living example of this. I've been working out 2 times a day for the better part of a year. Some days I work out 4 or 5 times. I'll work out for a total of 3 or 4 hours some days. I've cut back on it recently down to 2 workouts again because I'm busy with music, but there will be times where I work out all around the clock. When I was doing 500 push-ups a day, I was still running like 50 to 100 kilometers a week and still hitting my gym sessions every day. Whether or not it was in the actual gym or my home gym is, depends on where I was that day, but I was still doing all that stuff anyways. And then I was out and about because I was still at university, so I was walking another 10,000 steps a day on top of that. So a lot of people would say that's overtraining. 10-kilometer run, 10,000 steps, extra walking around, a workout or 2 in the gym, and 500 push-ups. A lot of people would say, oh, he's going to injure himself. I didn't injure myself. And I'll tell you why. Diet, sleep, those 2 things, diet and sleep, recovery, right? Diet, sleep, and stretching. That was the 3rd thing my brain wanted to add in there. Most people don't do these things. I've been able to push myself way harder since I optimized these 3 things. Now, first I'll tell you about my diet. Most people don't eat enough meat. There's been an effort. I'm not trying to get into conspiracy theories here, but there's been an effort to make meat look like the bad guy. I'm telling you right now, I'm on a carnivore diet. My brain has never been clearer than it has right now. And I'm only eating meat and eggs. I've never had more energy. Like the furthest I ran ever in one day was 15 and a half-ish miles. That was on my 3rd day of carnivore. I'm not even fully fat adapted now. I wasn't even fully fat adapted then, and I ran further than I was when I was eating 70 to 100 grams of carbs a day, relatively low. I'm telling you, you don't need to go carnivore, but at least try keto. Or at least try low carb. Try cutting your carbs down and absolutely cut out processed foods. Those are terrible for your brain. All that artificial seed oil and cornstarch and all that shit, all those extra sugars, you don't need that. Your body, you get fat because of those things. Meat and, and real food that you find in nature, that's not going to make you fat and give you heart disease. McDonald's is going to give you heart disease. Candy is going to give you heart disease. These things are the real villains of the food world. And a lot of people will say, no, but meat, red meat, bad. If you want cancer, eat the sugar. A lot of people say, no, I'm going to have my sugars and I'm going to avoid the red meat because cancer. Much higher concentrations of carcinogens in processed foods than in any sort of naturally occurring red meat, I'll tell you that. Believe me or not, whatever. Optimize your diet. Make sure you at least try going low carb, because I promise your brain will feel better and you will lose a lot of fat. Reduce your carb intake unless you really need carbs to work out. In that case, get them from natural sources like fruit and vegetables, which I did for a while. I ate, again, 70 to 100 grams of carbs of fruits and vegetables every day. And I got pretty lean on that. I got to about 14% body fat, and I could have gone further. I just switched to carnivore because I wanted to try it. But I could have gone to 10% body fat eating the way I was before. I just had to continue reducing my intake. You could bulk on that too. But I don't want this to become a super long diet section. I want to get back to the rest of the video about overtraining, but improve your diet. Make sure you're getting enough protein, gram of protein per pound of body weight that you want to weigh. So let's say you're bulking, you want to weigh 180 pounds. Eat 180 grams of protein a day. Minimize your carb intake. Make sure you're getting naturally occurring fats because those are good for you. Fat is demonized, but only the processed unnatural versions of fat. The overly saturated and the trans fats, those are the unhealthy ones. But if it's saturated fat from meat and eggs, not nearly as bad for you, and your body does need a lot of that because that's what regulates our hormone function. Same with cholesterol. Fat and cholesterol are necessary for hormone function. If you don't get enough of them, your hormones will not work, your body will not compose itself properly, and you will get fat no matter what you do. So make sure your diet consists of a lot of meat, good amount of vegetables, get your vitamins in, good amount of fruits, get your vitamins in, and some nuts. That's the way I ate to get down to 14% body fat. Could have gone way lower if I wanted to, just had to reduce the calories. So try keto, try low carb, optimize your diet, remove processed foods 99% of the time. You'll feel 100 times better. And you'll be able to train way more. Back to overtraining, I went on a huge diet tangent, but since I switched my diet to that, even on restricted calories, even days where I would be in a deficit of 500 or more calories, 1,000 calories some days, I could keep training. As tired as I felt, my body could keep going. As long as my mind willed it, I could have kept going. So, there's that. That's the first thing. Try that sort of diet. Second thing is sleep. Most people don't sleep enough. Spending 8 hours in bed does not mean you slept 8 hours. I've said this about 1,000 times in the last few years because it's true. I say this every single day, I swear to God. Just because you're in bed for 8 hours does not mean you slept for 8 hours. Because think about it. Spend some time tossing and turning before you fall asleep. Maybe you wake up during the night. Maybe you wake up a little bit early. Sometimes that happens if you have a consistent alarm. You wake up a bit before it. Somebody wakes you up in the middle of the night because they turned the light on in the hallway and they made a noise. You're not sleeping that 8 hours. Nobody does. The average sleep consistency, or rather sleep efficiency, is 80%. So if you're in bed for 8 hours, what's that? 6.5 hours of sleep? That's not horrible. There's some people who sleep like 3 hours, but you need more than that, especially if you're young, right? If you're older, you can get away with 7 hours. So maybe 8.5, 9 hours in bed with 80% sleep efficiency is good enough. But if you're young, 10, 11 hours for bed is what you need. Aim for at least 9, but get closer to 10 or 11 if you're under the age of 25. Because you're still developing. Your brain is still growing, right? You might not be growing in height, but your brain's still developing. Your bones are still somewhat forming. Your body's still growing in different ways, even if you're like me, 20, right? I don't know the exact science of that, but I know I'm still developing. So I digress. Sleep more. That's the first order of business with sleep. And when you do that, again, your body has more time to recover. You have more energy the next day. You can train harder. There's been days where I haven't been able to push myself to my actual limits because I don't have time to train that much. Think about that. Most people only make a little bit of time for training. There'll be days where I'll make 5 hours to run and lift and run and lift, and I'm not done yet. I could keep going. Now, of course, am I extremely tired at the end of that? Yeah. Did I do more workout or more of a workout than most people would? Yeah, sure. But I could keep going after that, and that's the point. If working out was my full-time job, I could keep going for more than 5 hours is the point. And partially diet, partially sleep. Another way to improve your sleep right here. Sleep in the dark. Stop sleeping with a nightlight on. You're not a baby. I only started doing this a little while ago. I always used to say, oh, I need the lamp in case I need to get up because I need to see. And yeah, that's a valid reason, but honestly, you should know your way around your room enough to be able to get up and turn the light on a couple steps out of bed, you know? So if you really need a lamp, put it next to your bed and turn it on if you have to get up to see. But at night, you should sleep in the dark because darkness makes you tired. When it's dark, we get tired because our brains, or I don't know if it's our brains, but our bodies generate more melatonin naturally, right? Some people take melatonin because they can't sleep. I used to do this, but I slept with the light on, which negates the body's natural melatonin creation. Why? Just turn the light off. You'll make more than enough melatonin anyways. Those melatonin tablets are mostly a placebo anyways. They're not very effective at all. Sorry, pharmaceutical industry, don't kill me, but, they're really not that effective. I learned that from someone in the pharmaceutical industry. I'm not going to name names, but either way, sleep more and sleep in the dark. Those are the two biggest things to sleeping better. Voice crack. Wow. I'm 20, I'm still getting voice cracks. That's crazy. But those are the two of the biggest things to sleeping better. Additionally, mental health is really going to help. So if you're getting into bed and you're feeling stressed, do a little bit of meditation. Take some deep breaths. Do a little bit of box breathing, some physiological sighs if you know about that. Just, some of those things. I'll explain them real quick. Box breathing is 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. Easy. So let's do one together. Maybe that wasn't exactly 4 seconds each way, and I forgot to mention exhale through the mouth, but you get it. That sort of thing. Do a few of those. That'll calm you right down. Physiological sigh is a little different. You push in through the nose as much as possible, and then once you get to your limit, you can't breathe in anymore. You force a little bit more in, and then you have a long exhale through the mouth. So I'll do one of those for you as well. Let's do it together. Now, don't use me as your only source on those things. Do your own research if you're not sure. But those two techniques have helped me relax quite a bit before bed on days where I still feel slightly anxious, which is very rare. But just in case, if you're a very anxious person or if you're depressed and that's stopping you from going to sleep, definitely employ these two techniques. Alongside those, meditation, very similar to the deep breathing I just outlined. Practice that. That'll help you feel better around the clock, which will improve your sleep quality. Gratitude and deep journaling as well. I've talked about these a million times, can go on about them forever. These will help you fall asleep better as well. And that pretty much sums up the mental health aspect. So again, for sleep more, sleep in the dark, improve your mental health. And don't use things that emit blue light for about half an hour to an hour before bed. That's another one that I find really helps me. I set my sleep tracker on an hour before I actually get into bed, or about half an hour sometimes, because I spend time journaling and then relaxing a little bit before I fully fall asleep. And what I find that does is helps me fall asleep faster. So those are a few things to just help you sleep better. which again will allow you to train more, which will help you prove to your friends who don't believe what I'm saying that overtraining is a myth. For most people, it is. So that was diet, sleep, and now stretching. I'm not an expert on stretching. I'm not going to go super in depth with this, but I'll just tell you, stretch all the big muscles in your body, Make sure, stretch your neck, do some of these, stretch the delts, stretch the triceps, get your hand on a wall, stretch the shoulder and the pec here, put your foot up on something like this and stretch the calf, bend down, touch your feet, stretch the hamstrings. You could even sit down, bend forward, stretch the hamstrings, put your leg behind your back, pull it back and stretch the quads. Stretch your abs, stretch every muscle you can stretch, right? There's a lot of videos online. I just use a version of David Goggins' stretching routine. I don't stretch for 2 hours a day like he does, but literally just look up David Goggins stretching routine. You'll find it. You'll find something to that effect. And if it works for him, the guy who can run 100 miles, more than that, the guy, he's done 200 plus mile races, like the Moab 240, I believe. If he can do that and that's his stretching routine, pretty sure it's going to work for anybody. You know what I mean? So implement a daily stretching routine, even if it's just 10-15 minutes. It feels insignificant at first, but over time you just start to become so much more flexible, and that really helps you with recovery. So just to wrap this up, again, diet, sleep, and stretching. Those are the 3 things that have allowed me to overtrain so much. And I really urge you to do all of these things, even if your intent isn't to work out for 5 hours in a single day or do something crazy like that, because it'll allow you to train so much harder. And that's another thing I want you to take from this video. You can train a lot harder than you think. Don't let people tell you, oh, that's too much, that's overtraining. If it works for you and it's giving you the results you want, do it. Do more of it. Do it so much till you're red in the face and everybody else is red in the face telling you to stop. Because if it's working for you, they can't say anything, right? Do the best that you can. Actually give it your best effort. Everyone says, I'm doing my best. You don't know what your best is, more than likely. I probably still don't, even though I've done so many days where I've pushed myself to the point of wanting to fall asleep right then and there. Most people don't know what their best is, so go out there and find it.